How clear is your aquarium water? Does it look like your fish are swimming in air? Is that something that you want? After being in this hobby for a few years, I can proudly say that my aquariums have crystal clear water. And yours can too. In this video, I'll show you the 5 tips that I use to do this, so that you can also enjoy a crystal clear aquarium. Tip number 1. Do not overfeed your fish. This is so important in so many different aspects. Any food that doesn't get eaten immediately will sink to the floor and start to decompose. This is even worse if you're using flakes, because any leftover flakes will start to break down and eventually melt into the water column without even having to sink. Why is all this an issue? Because a big part of the cloudiness that you see in your water is decomposing organic material. So to solve this problem, this is what you need to do. Every time you feed your fish, feed them very small portions. And pay attention to how long it takes them to eat it. The golden number is 2 minutes. Only feed what your fish will eat in 2 minutes. Doing this, you ensure that after you are done feeding, there will be absolutely no food left on that tank. Don't feel bad for your fish. Overfeeding can cause them so many health issues. Tip number 2. Chemical filtration. Filtration plays an essential role in achieving clear water. Mechanical filtration, which is performed by your sponges and your fine filter mesh, removes solid particles from the water column, while biological filtration gets rid of ammonia and nitrites. So, what is the purpose of chemical filtration? To remove contaminants from the aquarium, such as tannins, excess medicine, any chemicals that you don't want in the water. For example, let's say you start a new aquarium and you add a couple pieces of wood in there. Depending on the type of wood you use, it could start releasing tannins. And then you have brown water. If that's what you're going for, then that's perfectly fine. There are types of tanks that focus on recreating the habitat of a certain type of fish. Sometimes that means brown water. But if that's not something you want, then chemical filtration is your friend. If you are finding this video entertaining, please like and subscribe for more weekly content just like this. Tip number 3. Regular water changes. Think of a water change as a reset button. A lot happens in an aquarium throughout the week. You add fertilizers to it. You feed your fish. Fish are going to produce waste. Even if you are really careful, little by little, it starts to build up. And then it becomes unlikely that the water will be as clear as you want it to be. That's why we do water changes. It resets the aquarium. I like to do a 50% water change once a week. I then refill the tank with reverse osmosis water, which is water with no minerals. You don't need to do water changes so often, but they are a great help to achieve that air-like transparency in the water. Tip number 4. Reverse osmosis filtration. I know this is one that not everybody needs, but I sure do. And maybe you do as well. When do you need a reverse osmosis filter? The easy answer is when your tap water is too hard. Aquatic plants need soft water to thrive. From 120 to 180 TDS, sometimes a little bit more. That also applies to most fish in this hobby. But that isn't the only reason. Even if you have soft tap water, some water conditioners won't remove heavy metals or other contaminants. And some of these contaminants might cloud your water. So, depending on your conditions, it might not be absolutely necessary. But I think it makes fish keeping a little bit easier. Tip number 5. Choose rocks wisely. You see this tank? I think it's a nice tank. But when I first built it, it took almost 2 weeks for the water to clear. The reason why is because I used some rocks that wouldn't stop releasing debris into the water. It took about 2 weeks to go from this to this. I knew those rocks would do that because I used them in a different tank a few years ago, and I had the same issue. But I was naive and thought that for some reason it would be different this time. So my point is, choose your rocks wisely. Try to use rocks that are known to be good for planetary aquariums. And if you want to try something different to see how it goes, just know that it could work out or it could not. I hope these tips were helpful. And please let me know in the comments if you have any other tips that have worked for you. See you next week.